Sunday afternoon. First, let me just make a quick public service announcement and remind everyone that you're invited to join us tomorrow night at 8 o'clock for our annual Rudin Lecture with Professor Arthur Brooks. He'll be talking about the pursuit of happiness. If you've not already registered, please be sure to do so. I just want to take a moment to thank Tiki and Simcha Lions for bringing this event to fruition and for sponsoring today's program. This is not just a tour of Rome or a virtual tour of Rome. This is a virtual tour of Rome with the foremost tour guide of Jewish history in the area in the world. So we're really privileged and honored to have Micaela lead us today. And to introduce her, it's a pleasure to turn things over now to Tiki.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Levine. And also a special thank you to Rabbi Buchler for helping me facilitate this wonderful tour with Micaela today. Micaela and I go back a long time, maybe more than 15 years ago when we were in Rome and we happened to see an ad in Aware magazine. And I said to Simcha, let's do this, because whenever we travel, we have to not only have fun, see the cultural sites, but also to make sure that we see, the Jewish sites and history of any place we go to. So we were able to have that tour more than 15 years ago, and it was just beyond fabulous. And I remember her saying, please tell Rick Steves on his graffiti wall, which I had no idea what it was, but I went to his website and I sang your praises. And since then, we've been in Rome many times since and been together. And thank you so much for giving all of us at the Jewish Center a staycation, because we all need it. And this is, I know, going to be wonderful. I want to just give everyone a little bit of history and background about Micaela. Micaela Pavancello was born in Rome to a Jewish Roman father whose family has been in Rome for 2,000 years, and a Libyan Sephardic mother. She has lived in Rome her entire life and resides there with her family. Throughout her time as a guide, she has realized how miraculous Jewish life in Rome truly is. When the world-famous Rick Steves wanted to learn more about the ghetto, he turned to Micaela to give him a tour of the Roman ghetto. Micaela gives tours of the Jewish ghetto of Rome, the Roman Forum, and the Vatican, and much more. And now it is my greatest honor to introduce Micaela to all of you. Enjoy.
Grazie. Grazie mille. I really hope that we're going to have a great time together. I will share a video, a presentation. I will start with a little video. Okay, desktop. Okay. 82 slides. I hope you can bear with me. Ok, presentazione. Okay, let me go this back, this up here. Okay, so I will start with a small video just to show you where the ghetto area is located. This is a huge bird sea of Rome. You see the main synagogue in the center. Please enjoy the video. So what I shared with you, it's a video that shows the area of the ghetto, the interior of the Great Synagogue, and a little bit of the Jewish Museum, which is in the basement of the synagogue. I really hope to be able to show it to you once all this craziness is over. So most of the people relate the Jewish community of Rome with the destruction of the temple by Titus in 70. And with the diaspora, with the Golan, when Jews took two paths. But the Jews of Rome actually didn't come to Jerusalem, from Jerusalem at the time of Titus, but they came much earlier than that. You see, the Arch of Titus described the victory of Titus over Judea. And we'll go back to talk about this menorah, which is today the symbol of Medinat Israel, but it wasn't really like this when it came to Rome. And of course, we'll discuss also about the legend of the menorah. So most of the people think the Jews came to Rome with Titus as slaves. But actually, we know that there was a community even before the destruction of the temple. And that happened, the Jews came to Rome in 160 BCE at the time of Hanukkah. You know Hanukkah, right? Well, we didn't come here to light candles, not to switch presents. We came here because what Hanukkah celebrates is the victory of the Maccabees against Antiochus. And Antiochus is a Syrian pagan king who wanted to impose his pagan culture in Jerusalem, putting statues in our temple and forbid the study of the menorah, of the Torah, I'm sorry. And you can do anything you want with us, but don't touch the Torah. So when we fed up with that, we decided to send ambassadors to Rome to ask protection to the Romans against the Syrian king. So this is the first time a group of Jews left Jerusalem to go somewhere else before the destruction of the temple. That's the reason why Roman Jews are not Ashkenazim, so no gefilte fish for us, and not even Sephardim, because this distinction started with the destruction of the temple and the following diaspora, but we came straight from Jerusalem to Rome. So that's why we're so proud to be the most ancient Jerusalem Jews, but we're also very proud to be the most ancient Roman citizens, because we are the only group who came here more than 2,000 years ago and never left. So when you're eating Roman food, it's Jewish. And when you're speaking Roman slang, there are tons of Jewish expressions in it. It's just that people don't know because they don't have so many chances to meet with us. In a city of about 4 million citizens, there are only 15,000 Jews. As I always say, there's no chance to get hit by a Jewish car. Jewish scooter, yes, because we have many scooters to reach our stores. You know, we're all in the schmate business still today. So how do we know that there was a community before? Because we have a series of evidence of catacombs, for example, that used to be the ancient way to bury people. When Jews came to Rome, pagans, they were only pagans. Christ was not even born yet. And so Christians were not invented. And pagans were using catacombs, which is a system of burying people underground, digging out a very soft volcanic ash, the tufa, that Rome is built with. And so once these galleries were emptied out, they would bury their people and roll in a white sheet exactly as we do today. And there are Jewish catacombs in Rome, and there is not only the catacombs, there is also a very ancient synagogue that was functioning until the 4th century, and this is situated in Ostia. Ostia used to be the ancient harbor of Rome. There were 3,000 Jewish traders in Ostia, and instead of going back and forth to Rome every time they needed to go to synagogue, they built their own synagogue there. And the synagogue is still there with the Arona Kodesh facing the sea, as in the ancient times, and with a lot of room dedicated to different activities, because that's what synagogues were like in the past. There was an oven for the matzot, there were rooms to host travelers, there was a mikveh, of course, and other recreational, let's say, rooms. That's the pillar of the synagogue of Ostia Antica, and it shows 4 symbols that have been the most evocative symbols for Judaism for centuries, which are the menorah, the shofar, etrog, and lulav. These and only these 4 symbols have been identifying Judaism for centuries. The situation of the Jews really changed when Christianity became official, because Christians had as a mitzvah converting others, and they needed to discredit Judaism to push the early Christianity. So that's the first time you hear the Jews' voice on the wells. The Jews make the matzah with the blood of the Christian kids. Not to mention the accuse of Jews killing Christ that we've been dealing with until only 40 years ago. My parents used to come back home from school with a black eye, especially during Easter time, which was a special time to beat the Jews for killing Christ. But not anymore. Now we're the most trendy people in Italy. Everybody wants to have a Jewish friend, everybody's studying Kabbalah, and everybody's looking back to their Jewish roots. And everybody's great-great-grandparents were Marranos. I think it's better than being persecuted, but I don't think it's gonna last a lot. You know, whenever there is an economical crisis, who are the bankers? Who's the scapegoat? The Jews. And even though my grandfather was a peddler and we've never been bankers, still they blame us. I'm showing you here the ancient synagogue of the 11th century. In the column here, you see a graffiti in Hebrew that describes the name of the rabbi that was in charge of the synagogue. That was Natan ben Yechiel, the writer of the Aruch. In the Middle Ages, you could be burnt alive on a stake just for having your hair red. So it's really amazing how the Jews of Rome reacted to all that ignorant superstition in the Middle Ages, making Rome the center of Jewish studies. Talmud scholars would travel to Rome to get responsa. And so it's incredible how Jews always react with culture, liturgy, poetry in the worst times. Imagine that the best friend of Dante Alighieri, you know Dante, no? He was a Roman Jewish poet, and his name was Emanuele Romano, and they would even exchange mails. In this picture, you see how in 1555, the Pope, which is the time of the Renaissance, you know, Renaissance means rebirthing. So rebirthing from the Middle Ages, so where ignorance was ruling and superstition. While this Pope coming from the Inquisition environment, his name was Paul IV. Out of the blue, exactly the 14th July of 1555, he decided that was absurd and inconvenient. Then Jews and Christians were still living together after what the Jews had done to Christ. So he chose the worst era of Rome. You see that our homes were down the edge of the water. This is the Tiber, the Tevere. And that's why the area across the Tiber is called Trastevere. So I want to hear from you when you come visit me in Rome, Trastevere. It's Trastevere on the other side of the Tiber. That's what it means. It's like transoceanic. And so that's where the ghetto was established, because it was flooded every single winter, because it was stinky and smelly of fish. And who cares if the Jews are uncomfortable? The aim of the Pope when he established the ghetto was not killing the Jews. It was giving them such a hard time that they would choose to give up and save their souls. And which is the best way to save a Jew, according to Christians? Baptism, conversions, becoming a Christian. And so that's why, I'm sure if you have been to Rome, you have noticed that we have quite a few churches. I'm sure you have also realized, though, that we have more churches than people going to church. But the amount of churches that surround the 4 blocks of the ghetto can't be a coincidence. Churches were like a neon sign. Join us, join us. And so every Shabbat, instead of going to synagogue, Jews would have to go to church to listen to the Holy Mass, where a priest, using very tough ways and manners, would try to convince them to convert. So this is one of the many churches that surround the area. It's probably the most interesting. It's got a crucifixion just in case we forget. And then Hebrew here, above the door, below the crucifixion, a Hebrew text translated in Latin with words from Isaiah, our prophet. It says, I've opened my arms to the stubborn people as who don't want to understand, they took a wrong path. They use my prophet against me. Isn't that sophisticated? It's not just burning people alive in a square. It's trying to brainwash them slowly with time, because there's plenty of time to convince them and there's no rush. And as a paradox, I really believe that the ghetto preserved our identity. You know, wherever there has been wealthness and freedom, somehow it led to assimilation. But we were poor, miserable, and forced and obliged to do things and obliged to give up our faith and customs. And so I think that that's the only thing we really wanted to keep as much as we could. And that's why today in Rome, you can get a divorce over the way you cook the cholent for Shabbat. This is really what matters here. And I'm not joking. The ghetto didn't have a wall because buildings themselves were working as a wall, and windows facing the outside had to be blinded with a blanket. So no visibility from outside. It's like a jail. I'm sure you have not been in jail, but if you have, I'm sure you remember you didn't pay your bedroom, you didn't pay the salary of your guards, you didn't pay taxes nor food. Everything was free. While in the ghetto, they had to pay for every breath of air they were taking. There were gates which were open at sunlight and closed at sunset. So you could actually go out. But would you ladies go out if you had to wear on your dress the same sign of the prostitutes? Men had to go out wearing a funny, ridiculous yellow hat with a horn in the middle and bells all around. Mock me, I'm Jewish, if it's not clear. And among the rules to obey, Jews could not incriminate Christians in any way. The Pope decided to use these former ancient Roman ruins, the Portico di Ottavia, as the main entrance to the ghetto. As you can see, the right line of buildings here, in pink and gray, they are original from the ghetto times. While this block here on my left, on your left, was built in 1911, with the next one, which is today the Jewish school. So today people come to the area, which is one of the most trendy and touristy area of Rome. And it wasn't like that when we met, Tiki, right? And this amount of sky, it's huge compared to the end of the street. You see how it gets narrow? Well, that was the amount of sky that Jews could see in the ghetto. There was no sun that could dry the floor from the mud of the floods of the winter times. And that's why I cannot stand when people today come to the area and they go like, but why do Jews complain? This is so beautiful. But this has nothing to do with what it used to be. Now, it's also true that we kvetch all the time, but that's not the case. So in front of you, you see the ruins of the Portico di Ottavia. Now, Ottavia was the sister of Augustus. So it was an imperial woman, and her brother, Augustus, the emperor, built this kind of Lincoln Center of the ancient Rome for her. So here you could come to listen to concert, you could come to take books from the Greek library, from the Latin library. And so it was a cool place to come. And then it became a fish market. And so that's why after being a fish market for many centuries, the Pope thought that this would be the best area for a ghetto. No? Stinky, smelly, flooded, Jewish. Jews could only do two jobs, guess. Money lending and selling rags. Now, we all know the Jews were money lenders throughout the history, but do we know why they were obliged to lend money? Because in the Torah, in the Bible, which Christians follow as well, it says, don't charge interest to your brother. And so what? Christians call each other brothers by default. Even if there's no blood connection, they're brothers. So for them, it would be mortal sin. But weren't Jews already mortal sinners for killing Christ? Yeah, so let the Jews do it. They cannot die twice. So this is the beginning of the prejudice. Now, I'm not saying we didn't like it. I'm saying it was an obligation. We eventually became the best. I don't think it's a coincidence so many Jews are in finance today. The other job the Jews could do in Rome was selling rags, second-hand clothes, so that only the most miserable people of the society would have to deal with them. Now, even today, Roman Jews, probably 80% of them, are still in the clothing business. Imagine that my mother had a shop of clothes. I am 44 today. And when I told her after high school, I'm going to college, my mother freaked out. We got a shop of clothes. Who's going to take care of the business? Who's going to marry you if you study? Well, she was right about that, right, Tiki? It took me a long time to get married. I got married at 35. Nobody really wanted me. And so my mother said, you will be too educated. You will never find a husband. Anyway, I said, Ma, I don't care. I want to study. And then she said, what, medicine or law? No, Ma, I was thinking about art. And then she wanted to kill me. Then I did a tour with Madonna's husband, and so she started to get curious. Then I ended up on the Newsweek, and I was very proud. Mama, look, Newsweek is covering my tours. She took the Newsweek and said, yeah, nice, but it's not a Jewish magazine. Have you ever experienced an Italian Jewish mother? Italian Jewish, you know what I'm saying? Italian Jewish. So don't ever complain about your Yiddish mama anymore, because otherwise I'll send you my mother for a week and then you'll see what it means. Anyway, even the Jerusalem Post got what my mother was like. And when they wrote an article about my tours, the journalist left the last line for my mother saying, Micaela, we hope your mother is happy now. This is a Jewish magazine. So she framed it next to the picture of my wedding, which was really the only thing she could care about. This map here shows you on the left, the area of the ghetto as it used to be, with the buildings on the water as the first image that I showed you, and with a density of buildings that was originally hosting 3,000 Jews. But then, you know, we got the mitzvah of multiplying, and there was no television at that time. So 3,000 immediately became 9,000, but the area could not expand. So that's why the buildings of the ghetto are today, the original ones, all 7, 8, 9 stories, because that was the only chance they had to squeeze more people. And then what happened? In 1870, the city of Rome became the capital of the Kingdom of Italy. At that point, you know, Garibaldi, our only hero, he kicked out the Pope. The Pope had been the king of Rome, and he was the king of the Jews. So we were under his jurisdiction. He had power of life and death over us. And he was kicked to the Vatican. The Vatican state was finally created, and he became the king of his own state. But the Jews got the emancipation, and the city of Rome became the capital. Do you think the municipality could leave this zoo for human beings in the center of town? So everything was just turned down and rebuilt. And so that's why people get confused. They come to the area and they say, why do Jews complain? This is so beautiful. Well, it's changed. Now, to your right, on the right side of the map, you see the embankments protecting finally the city from flood. You see the great synagogue, which is the synagogue of the emancipation. It's not a synagogue of the ghetto times where everything had to be modest and short. And then these 4 blocks built in 1911. So now it's very nice, very ordinated, and that's what confused people. Now, you should ask yourself why, with so many beautiful sites in Rome, we built our synagogue in the most horrible area where we had been struggling to survive for 3 centuries. Because we are the people of the memory, of the remembrance, and we wanted to remind the future generations what happened here for a few centuries. And if this is still a very Jewish area today, it's not due to the Jews who live in the area, which became too expensive for us. Again, I told my mother 20 years ago, Ma, let's go buy in the ghetto. I feel a connection, it's our place, let's repopulate it. And my mother replied, me living with those schleppers, forget it. And now she's killing herself for not listening, because now it's too expensive when we can't afford it. So today the Jewish population of the area, it's only 400 Jews, which are a mix of very wealthy who managed to come back and very poor who never had a chance to go away. And all the others are people belonging to the show business, actors, politicians, actresses, who know that the area is in a process, I think, completed of gentrification, and it's now the place to live. Also because it's really like a shtetl of the 21st century in a cosmopolitan city of 4 million citizens. It's the area where you can still see our elderly sitting on the benches, talking, gossiping, schmoozing. I'll show you a few pictures of what it is today like. This is actually a picture. It's an engraving of the 17th century where you can see one of the gates, one of the gates of the ghetto, the fountain that is now in a square next to it, a gallows, because this Pope was so nice to bring fresh water to the Jews, because otherwise they had to drink the water from the Tiber. And that's the Vatican police station. That's a gallows to hang people, just in case. And if you are familiar with the area, that's the famous corner where the Jewish bakery is. Millions and millions of tourists in Rome come to the Jewish bakery to eat the traditional cookies that they have been making for the last only 500 years. I'll share them with you at the end virtually. This is a picture with the 5 synagogues building, because among the rules to obey, Jews could only pray in one synagogue. Can you imagine Jews coming from Jerusalem with their own nusach? Jews coming from Spain in 1492, remember the Queen and the King of Spain kicked out the Jews, and they were welcome to Rome, and they brought their own nusach. And so there were Jews from Sicily, from Castilla, from Catalonia, and then the original Jews from Jerusalem. And how do we say 2 Jews, 5 synagogues, right, Rabbi Levine? So it was impossible that these different kind of Jews could pray together only in one synagogue. So very smartly, to obey the Pope, they built one building with 5 tiny rooms inside, each one for each congregation. And this is the building. The building does not exist since 1890 because there was a fire and it was destroyed, but we managed to save the interior. And so I will show you a few pictures of this 5 synagogues building. This is the inside. This is a satirical drawing from the 19th century. I challenge you to find me inside the synagogue, somebody praying. Even one, it's enough. These children are playing. This is sleeping. Here they're arguing or making business, who knows. This is climbing a column, more business, yelling, arguing. The only one praying seems to be the rabbi. That's not very far from today, to be honest. I forgot to tell you that we are only Orthodox in Rome, but the real way of being Orthodox in Rome, it's very funny. I'll share with you a definition from our former chief rabbi. He said that Roman Jews are Orthodox in structure, conservative in philosophy, Reform in behavior, and Catholic in religion. And of course it's a joke, but it's really, really fitting with what we are. We are a Jewish community that has been surrounded by Christians who wanted to convert. And so we really kept as much as we could our traditions. But we also had to find a balance between the outside and the Jewish community. This is a beautiful picture of one part of the collection of the Jewish Museum, which you should know, it's a unique in the world for the history of fabrics. Because since the Jews of Rome were in the schmatt business, their wives, to help the family business, became the best seamstresses in town. And they were working for the aristocratic ladies of Rome. And when these ladies would get tired of their dresses, which happened once a week, the Jewish ladies would convert dresses into Torah cover. So we are the only Jews in the whole world who can really say dressing the Torah, because they used to be dresses, as you can see. Also, the rimonim, the crown, were all made by non-Jewish artists. Why? Because the Pope would not let the Jews work with metals. They could cast weapons with them, and they could also become too important in the society for being artists. And so they were using the best non-Jewish artists in town who were making objects also for the church. So that's why some objects look like very churchy, not to mention our great synagogue. These are the rooms of the Jewish Museum, which has got a collection that spans from the catacombs gravestones till today's donations. Also, you should know that in Rome, it has been always traditional to donate to your synagogue in the past, I mean, in the ghetto times and even today, but instead of writing our names, the synagogue, to thank us for the donation, we would directly add a crest on top of the donation. Let me see if I can find you. Let's see, here you see, on top of the Rimonim. Here there is a vase with flowers. Here there are towers. Here there is a lion. Here there is a rooster. You should know that Roman Jewish names have nothing to do with Goldberg, Goldstein, Schwarzkopf, or Steiner. We have typical Roman Jewish names, which were invented when we were already here. So my last name, which you can read below my picture, it's Pavoncello, which means little peacock. Now, if my family was wealthy, and we were not at all, we would have a peacock showing off somewhere, but guarantee that there are no peacocks all over the museum. This is a watercolor from a very famous Austrian artist who traveled to Rome and portrayed anything was possible, and he would never miss a chance to come to see the ghetto area and depict daily scenes. So you can see how the misery of the ghetto was very bad. And also you can see how it looked like a Portobello market where people were coming and selling and buy anything that was available. Here the same artist showing a scene from the Portico d'Ottavia when it used to be a fish market. Regarding the fish market, it's very interesting to know that the Pope Maffeo Barberini, who's a pope who I've been I have been a fan of as an art historian, because he was the man who told Gian Lorenzo Bernini to make Rome the Baroque city that it is today. And so in terms of mecenatism, he was a man of culture, and I really don't understand how he could be such a terrible anti-Semite. The Jews were living in a fish market, and even though he decided that they could only eat anchovies and sardines, because big fishes were only for Christians. So now the Pope didn't know how good is the omega-3 inside the sardines and the anchovies. So he preserved our health without intention. The same Pope decided that during a terrible spread of plague, is it noisy? Can you follow? Aaron? It's good? The audio is good? No, no good? Good, okay, sorry, because there are people chatting here, so I wondered. And so the Pope decided that even though there was a terrible spread of plague in Italy, he decided that, of course, the spreaders of the plague were the Jews. So he locked them in the ghetto without giving them a chance to go out. Well, guess what? That preserved them from the plagues. So you see, what goes around comes around. That's a picture of the ghetto today. It's beautiful how this shtetl changed its mood according to the time of the day. This building here, the pink one on your right, is the Jewish school since 2005. When I studied in the Jewish school that goes from kindergarten through high school, it used to be on the other side of the river in Trastevere. But then we did some business with the municipality of Rome, and we managed to get this huge former public school and make it into the Jewish school. And that gave life back to the area, because today you see the kids going back and forth, the mothers, the cows, of a thriving and bustling Jewish community. What I want to underline is that when you come to visit the Jews of Rome or the Jewish history of Rome, you're not gonna see just gravestones or lapid or things that describe something that it's over. We are there, and we're very happy to be there, very proud to be there. And so this is really perceivable from any point of view. This is a picture of the ghetto early in the morning when everything is still closed, and he wakes up very slowly with the kids that get into the school, the mothers who sit in this cafeteria to have their cappuccinos and gossip and chatting and schmoozing, as you can imagine. The era, as I said, is still home for a lot of our elderlies who never had a chance to go away. For economical reasons, they stayed in the same home where they were born. This man, I'd like to share his story with you, is 89. His name is Emanuele Di Porto. He lives on the 4th floor of one of the ghetto buildings, no elevators. That's why he keeps fit. He was from the same window, the morning of 16 October 1943, at the age of 12, he saw his mother being taken by the Nazi, will go back to the war, but I just wanted to show you, to tell you what he did. Of course, a child sees his mother taken, he follows and runs after him, and so the Nazi take him too on the truck. His mother, who knows how, managed to put him down again and gives him a sight, which was her last sight to his son, and tells him to run. And so he starts running, but he doesn't know where to go. And so he goes through the tiny streets, to the narrow streets of the ghetto to get out, and jumps on a tram. As soon as he jumps on the tram, he tells the driver, I'm a Jew. I don't know where to go. I can't go back home. And so the driver, instead of turning him, decides to keep him with him, next to him. He shares a sandwich with him and tells the other driver to take care of the child, who spends inside the tram 2 days, 2 nights and 3 days. At the end of the 3rd day, somebody that he used to know gets on the tram, somebody who's also hiding. And as soon as he sees him, besides of the big surprise of understanding that he made it, he reveals him that his father also made it. And he's hiding in an apartment of friends of them near the Vatican, and he's ready to take him there. So every time I meet this man and I let him share his story, especially when I have families with children, I always think about the moment when his father opened the door and saw his child. And so these are the people that I get the honor to meet every day, and the people that I get the honor to talk about. And these are my friends. As my mother says, I cannot wait to be 80 to sit on those benches. The benches of the pedestrian area of the ghetto are full of our elderlies who just use them as they would go to a JCC. But they say that JCC, it's for old people. And they like to gather here, sitting on the benches, watching people go by, gossiping and talking. I was a big issue for them until I got married. Every single day, they didn't care if I was with group of 105 or 20 or with politicians or head of states. They would stop me if they had to tell me something like, I found out that that guy that could be very good for you just broke up with his girlfriend, maybe he can put a good word for you. So these would be their ways with me. And of course, they were the first one to see my engagement ring when I finally got one. And of course, they came to my wedding without even need an invitation, because they couldn't miss such a situation. And here they are, the Zie. And this is a more recent picture that shows you how they would never give up gathering in the square, as they have been doing for years and years. Even during COVID, they would just wear a mask and spend the day. This is a picture of the synagogue when it was built finally in 1904. It took only 3 years to build the synagogue. As you can see around, there's nothing. Everything was just turned down to be rebuilt. The fountain here is the fountain that I showed you in that image where the gallows was. And so you can see that everything else had to be rebuilt. The funds to build the synagogue came only from Roman Jews, and that's pretty a miracle. And it shows you how much important was to them to finally build the synagogue that will show finally their freedom and emancipation. When the two architects, we did an international context because we didn't have Jewish architect at that time. And so these two guys who won the contest really didn't have any clue about building a synagogue. And so they built a Jewish church. And you will see that the plan, it's a cross. But the most interesting thing is the dome, because while all the churches of Rome are rounded, this is the only one squared. And inside, as you can see, it looks a little bit churchy-like. There are naves on the sides, and there is a huge Arana Kodesh with a bima that it's elevated. And it shouldn't be like that, because the bima should be always at the same level as the congregation. Being an Orthodox synagogue, women sit upstairs, where honestly the acoustic is so horrible that you cannot hear one word of what happens down, while men can hear all the whispering gossips of women upstairs. I think it was done on purpose. You can see that we use the synagogue for weddings. I got married in the synagogue, of course. To make it even more churchy-like, we have an organ behind the main aron. You see the rainbow painted in the dome of the synagogue. Why the rainbow? Do you remember when the rainbow first appears in the Torah? I'm sure you do. It was with Noah. In the parasha of Noah, God promised Noah no more floods. And now what happened in Rome? floods. We were flooded every single winter. So what, God forgot? So just in case, we posted him a rainbow, just in case he forgot. The synagogue has been stage of a terrible terrorist attack in 1982. A Palestinian commando came outside of the synagogue on the last day of Sukkot, on Shemini Atzeret, when there is a special blessing for children, and the synagogue was packed. They came outside, they started to throw bombs, grenades, and when the people inside the synagogue heard the blast of the bombs, they started running out, and the Palestinian terrorists started shooting, and they killed this child who was only 2 years old, and seriously injured other 45 who went walking to the hospital to get medicated. We have always suspected that there was somehow a connivance between Italy and PLO. And we got a confirmation a few years ago when the prime minister of those years, Francesco Cossiga, released an interview to Yedidot Aharonot, the Israeli newspaper. He was sick with cancer, so who knows, he wanted probably to do some teshuvah. And so he declared that Italy and PLO in those years had a secret agreement, which was called the Lodo Moro, from Aldo Moro, that was arrested and kidnapped by the Red Brigades and therefore killed. And the agreement was the following. Italy will offer logistic base to PLO to plan and carry out terrorist attacks throughout Europe, but they shouldn't touch Italian targets. So they happen to forget that we happen to be Italians as well. And that's something that I think stays as a terrible stain in the relationship between the country that we consider our country. 4 years after the terrorist attack, we got the unrequested visit of the Pope, John Paul II. I underline unrequested because he asked to be invited. And that established the first step of reconciliation with Jewish world. When the chief rabbi here, Elio Toaf, which is today emeritus chief rabbi of the community of Rome, a man who has led this community for 55 years, since after the war till just a few years ago, he was very scared, very nervous. Should I shake his hand? Should I kiss his hand? Should I call him John Paul, Johnny JP, Mr. Pope, Holy Father? How am I supposed to call him? There was no protocol. This was the first time in the history a Pope was stepping inside a synagogue. But guess what? He didn't have to do anything, because as soon as the Pope came in, the Pope hugged the rabbi and whispered, "You are my elder brother," which is beautiful. But do you think we liked it? No, because in the Torah, the younger brother always kills the elder brother. But I think he could have said whatever and we would have found it wrong. The truth is that the relationship between these two men became really pure and honest. And whenever the Pope was sick in the hospital, which unfortunately happened for many years at the end of his career, the chief rabbi was always welcome to go and visit him as an old friend would do. And when the Pope died, in his last will that was published in every single newspaper of the world, the Pope said, "How can I mention by name all the people that helped me during my path? There would be no place for all of them. But how can I not mention my good friend and chief rabbi of Rome, Elio Toaf?" That's a lot, no? And I think if a lot of people today are used to come to the ghetto and broke that taboo of coming to visit the synagogue, coming to see and understand what we are, we owe it to this man. This man who was a partisan, exactly as our chief rabbi during the war. A man who saw half of his friends disappearing. How could he not deal with that? I cannot say the same about this one who came next. Well, this is Pope Ratzinger. We call him Baruch in a friendly way. When we're angry, we even call him the German Shepherd. Depends from what he does. And so we invited him for the 20th anniversary of the visit of the previous one, which fell in 2006. He was elected in 2005, and he lives really around the corner from the synagogue. So we thought, we invite him, he comes right away. Well, he was so busy that he made us wait 4 years. But during those very busy years, he wasn't busy enough to reintroduced the Latin Mass, which is really anachronistical and where we were described as evil. Thanks God they did not reintroduce that line, but they kept the line that it's read every Good Friday during Easter that says, let's pray for our Jewish brothers for their conversion. In 2010, you still want to convert me? Isn't it clear that I'm not interested? So I really felt it as an offense, but that was not the worst that he did. After reintroducing the Latin Mass, he re-welcomed the excommunicated group of Lefebvre, which is a schismatic group of the church, very anti-Semitic and very, with all the good things a pope can do, you choose to do the worst ones. And then the last thing he did, he pushed the beatification of Pius XII, who was the pope in charge during the war. Of course, we'll talk about him too. And then when he finally came in January 2010, I was sitting in the women's section. I didn't know if I should go or not. I didn't like the man, but I thought it was an historical moment and I should participate. So in the first row, next to the bima, you see the bima? In front of the bima, there is the first row that is dedicated to our survivors. So you can see here, ex-deported means survivors. So our survivors were sitting just in front of him. What does he do? He stands up out of protocol and he starts clapping his hands to the survivors. And I was sitting upstairs and I thought, wow, this is a beautiful gesture. Maybe I really misjudged this man. Maybe he's not so bad. And just after clapping his hands, he took the microphone, kept watching the survivors from Auschwitz, not from Disneyland. And he said to them, while everybody else were turning their shoulders to you during those horrible days, the Holy See, the Vatican, did whatever they could to help you. So that's what the Pope said in front of the survivors. And from that moment, we stopped being friends. So the best thing he did, I think, was resigning. Then came Pope Francis. And this time my Jewish community gave me a really big kavod because I was among the 8 people allowed to shake his hand, and I was introduced to him as the youngest guide who worked for the interreligious dialogue because I take Jews to the Vatican and Christians to the synagogue. I thought to myself, this is a great picture for my website, I'll take it. But I really have to say that Pope Francis had a totally different background. He was living in Argentina where the Jewish community was huge, 300,000 Jews. One of his best friends was the chief rabbi of the synagogue of Libertad. They wrote a book together. So he was much more ready to be open. I think Ratzinger's problem, if we want to call it a problem, is that he's been stuck in a seminar studying theology since the age of 5. He really never had a life. And so how can you empathize? And that, let me brag a little bit. This is my dad with John Paul II in the 80s. And this is me with Pope Francis a few years ago. So we're hoping that one of my children, maybe who knows, maybe we'll meet the Pope, or maybe they won't be a Pope anymore. Who knows? Here, this is a picture of my grandparents in 1936. I chose this picture because even though it shows the misery of a Jewish family in the 30s, I'd like to point to the fact that my grandmother here, the bride, she could not afford a white dress. And so she had to dress with a probably borrowed dress in brown. Next to her, my great-grandmother, who was sold by a fascist policeman in 1944, a month before the end of the war, and ended her life in Auschwitz. Her life costed the Nazi 400 liras. We'll go back to this, but I just wanted to tell you that this was an happy moment before the tragedy of the racial laws. Here we go. 1938, the two buddies become best friends. Mussolini had taken the power in 1922. So a lot of Jews became fascist. You have no idea how many Jews were fascist because Mussolini was a socialist. And didn't we invent socialism? Certainly nobody was expecting that Mussolini would become the doormat of Hitler. But that's what happened. So in 1935, in 1938, after that Hitler had introduced and imposed the Nuremberg laws in 1935, Hitler had to do the same in 1938. So all of a sudden, he applied the racial laws. Now, they call them racial, but they were really racist. Jewish kids were kicked out from public schools. Jewish professors had to stop teaching. Jewish doctors had to stop practicing. No intermarriage was allowed. No Christian servants. No jobs. No property. No sitting on a bench in a park. No owning a radio. No being member of a tennis club, a swimming pool. To give you a practical idea, actually, I'd like to share something that I experienced with Tiki and Simcha myself, because when we were together many years ago, Simcha told me that when he comes from St. Louis, and then when he was a child, they had hosted in their home, I don't know how, a girl from Turin who wanted to continue her studies. And she was a Jewish Italian girl studying chemistry or biochemistry, I can't remember now. Well, to make it short, this girl who had studied in Tiki's house and continued studied in the US because she was kicked out from Italian university being a Jew, became a Nobel Prize, and her name is Rita Levi Montalcini. So this is one of the many examples of Jews who luckily managed to continue their studies, like the famous Nobel Prize in Economics, Modigliani. Modigliani also was a Roman Jew whose family was smart enough to move out before it was too late. To give you my family example, my grandfather, who I told you was never, I learned the Yiddish word for my grandfather job, which is alte Sachen. That's what he used to do. He used to move, help people moving from one place to another, from a home to another, and then he would be allowed to sell the leftover of furnitures, objects. And so he had a grotto, my grandfather had a grotto with inside all secondhand stuff, and that was my Disneyland when I was a child. And so my grandfather had 3 children in school age who were kicked out from school, and he couldn't keep them at home. He had to do something with these kids. And so he asked help to a friend of his who decided to accept taking them for free in his workshop. He was a mechanic, and my uncles became mechanics. They've been mechanics all their lives. My father and his younger brother were born after the war, and they were very talented with numbers. As much as the other two, they had access to education. They went all the way through college. So my father is a mathematician, and his brother is a statistician. So in the same family, you got 2 who fix cars and 2 who teach at university. Now, the 2 who fix cars make much more money than my father teaching at university, but that's, you know, how culture goes in the whole world. So this is a very important picture because it shows the naivety, the genuinity of the Jews of Rome who celebrated the fall of Mussolini in July 43, thinking the 25th of July, Mussolini fall, the king at that point escaped in the south to protect himself. At that point, we think the war is over and we're safe. But then what happened? 2 months later, September 43, the head of the Gestapo, which at that point, you know, the Gestapo behaved in a different way in Rome, because don't forget, in Italy in general, because we were allied to the Nazi. So while in the rest of Europe, they started deporting the Jews since 1940, here in Rome, we were allied to the Nazi. Nazi soldiers would commonly come to the ghetto area, which was not a ghetto anymore, I remind you, but it was still a Jewish area, and Jews have always been in the souvenir business. So Nazi soldiers would come to our area to buy souvenirs, and they would say to the Jews, "You are very lucky here in my country." So we were warned by the Nazi. That's incredible. But then in September 43, when we signed the armistice, you see, the Allied are disembarked in Sicily. So we believe in 2 weeks they will reach Rome. Let's support them. And we switch position, as we're very good at. So now we are allied to the Americans, but the Nazis are in the country and they occupy Rome. Now, I see the under occupation, it's not a party. It's curfew, violence, stealing, robbing, anything, murdering. But in Rome, it didn't look like a real occupation. Why? Because the Pope, Pius XII, was so afraid that the Nazi could bomb Rome as a revenge and destroy the smallest church would be a terrible loss. Imagine a bomb over St. Peter. Imagine a bomb over the Christian catacombs with the relics of the martyrs of the early Christianity. So the Pope, I guess he worked very hard and managed to get Rome not bombed for 9 months. Rome became città aperta, the open city. Now, have the Nazis ever respected an agreement? Not that I know, but they did it in Rome. Maybe the Pope had to offer something in change, who knows. So in September 43, Nazis are very angry with all the Italians and even more with the Jews. They asked the Jewish community, which at that time counted 13,000 people, to collect in less than 36 hours, 110 pounds of gold. Otherwise, 200 Jewish men will be taken to work in labor camps. I remind you that we have no clue of termination camps. We only know that adult men only could be arrested and be taken to labor camps in Germany as prisoners of war. Nobody would expect that they would take also mothers and children. So what is really true is that after giving the gold, it was reached even in less than 36 hours, and not because we were wealthy, because this is a time where people are killing each other for a spoon of sugar. They managed to collect this huge amount with the help of all the Roman citizens who came to our synagogue doing a long line around the block to give their contribute. Now, this didn't happen so often in other countries where people seem to enjoy hunting the Jews for free. But don't forget that years and years of anti-Semitic propaganda, anti-racist, because we were considered another race, were not the same propaganda in Italy. In Italy, Jews had to be saved to be converted. That was the anti-Jewish propaganda. Jews had to be converted. They were not an inferior race. So when the Romans saw that their brothers were in danger, they came and gave their contribute. Now you should know that 80% of Italian Jews survived World War II, while 80% of the European Jewry was murdered. So there is a difference. And I believe there are a few things that played a good role in this. First of all, we were not the intelligentsia. So getting rid of a Roman Jewish plumber doesn't really change anybody's life. Also, as I said, anti-Judaism was slightly different from anti-Semitism. Also, for once in the history, the fact that Italians are inefficient played a great role. When the Nazis thought, let's get the fascists do the job. Is it okay? I read that the internet connection, it's okay? Can you hear me? See? Okay. Grazie, Adina. So when the Nazi thought, okay, let's give the role to the fascists, they'll make a good job exactly as if we were doing it. Thanks God, we are so, lazy and incapable that even the deportation didn't work as they planned. Also, between getting rid of a child or pretending not to have seen it, the second one would work better. Of course, when the Nazis saw that Italians were not collaborating for free, as they were doing everywhere else, they had to introduce a reward. So you could get paid 5,000 lira for selling a Jewish man, 3,000 lira for selling a Jewish woman, 1,000 lira for a child. So people started selling Jews. And as I said, my great-grandmother was sold. Even though we gave the gold to the Nazi, and even there, the Vatican made a call in the few hours of the ultimatum and said, in case you don't reach the amount, we might be able to send you something that you will return us with time. So that was the Vatican offer. I would have rather like the Pope or somebody for him telling me, don't give this gold to the Nazi. We can't do nothing for you, but trust us, this gold is not going to save you. Use it to bribe, use it to go underground. nothing was told us. We just gave 50 kilos of gold to the Nazi, and 2 weeks later, they came to knock on our doors on a Shabbat, 16 October 43, at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was pouring rain. We thought we were safe. And they gave us an Italian text, which is a very good move and very interesting move from the Nazi. If you have read Primo Levi, what he writes about the Italians in the camps is that they were among the most miserable because they could not understand a word of German, a word of Polish, a word of Russian, a word of Yiddish. They could not understand. And so they were killed after not showing up at the roll call. After the appel, they would not show up. They didn't know when their numbers were called. So if you talk to the few survivors, one of our survivors turned 90 yesterday, and the whole community celebrated with him. And so if you talk to those survivors today, the first thing they recite to you is their number in German, because that's what saved them from death. So the Nazi were very smart to give them an Italian text that says, together with your family and with the other Jews belonging to your home, you'll be moved. You have to take with you food for at least 8 days, your identity cards, glasses. You are allowed to take with you a suitcase with personal effect, money, jewels, and close the apartment with the key and take the key with you. So when you're back, all is going to be as you left it. Sick and elderly cannot be left behind because there is a hospital in the new camp. 20 minutes after receiving this card, you have to be ready to go. So that morning, 1,092 Jews is arrested. But very interesting is that instead of going straight to Auschwitz, we're talking about October 43. Nazi know that it's almost over. And instead of using this precious time to arrest more, they keep these Jews in arrest in Rome, in the military college near Trastevere. Now, 1,000 civilians in arrest 100 meters from the Vatican. It's weird, no? A lot of historians wonder why in Rome, Nazi had this special treatment for the Jews. Why they put them in standby? Well, the historians think that the Nazis were so afraid of a Vatican reaction that they needed to test and check what the Pope would say about the arrest and deportation of 1,000 and more Roman civilians. Because you see, they were not political dissidents, they were not partisans, they were not criminals, they were not thieves, they were not communists, they were not carabinieri, they were just Roman civilians. And you know what the Vatican did? Among the 1,092 arrested, 9 or 10 intermarriage Christians baptized were arrested as a mistake. Well, the Vatican diplomats did all their efforts. Those 9, 10 were freed, and the others could go. To give you an idea, a Jewish woman gave birth to her son on October 17th in the military college in a courtyard. The Jewish community leaders asked the Nazi if they couldn't send her to the hospital, and there was no way. The child, of course, was killed as soon as they arrived 8 days later. Very interesting is also to know, and I found out recently when I was preparing a Zoom only on World War II, that the Vatican newspaper was the only newspaper in Italy that was not subjected to censura, because the fascists could not control a newspaper of the Vatican because it's another state. And so the Osservatore Romano, that's the name of this Catholic newspaper, reported the news even after the New York Times. The New York Times reported the news of the Roman deportation on October 2020, more or less, 22, and the Vatican gave the news on October 26th, after the Jews had already gassed at their arrival on October 23rd. Now, this is just to tell you that even though this issue about Pius XII and how he did do what he did do or not didn't do during the war, I can tell you my family experience. They didn't get a participation, an invitation to hide in the Vatican during the 9 months of the occupation. The Pope made sure to help those who he wanted to help. And among them, the chief rabbi of Rome at that time was a replacement of a Roman chief rabbi that the fascists didn't like. And so there was this Galician rabbi on his way out from Galicia who transited in Rome. They elected him chief rabbi, and the guy hid in the Vatican for 9 months, and afterwards he converted and became Catholic. And they keep using him as an example of the Jews they helped. Well, this is a still of a movie about 16 October 1943. I'm reading a beautiful book now that was written by an Italo-American, Elisabeth Bettina. And this book, it's called It Happened in Italy. And it's the story of a very rarely known camps near Napoli and in Calabria, where the Jews didn't have to wear a yellow star, didn't have to wear a uniform. They were welcome by Italian fascists who didn't do what they were expected to do by the Nazi. And as these survivors from, they all ended up in New York. So it's very interesting. You might know some of them who spent the months of the occupation in Ferramonti. This is the name of the camp. They could dress with their clothes. They could go to the cafeteria. They could mix with the population of Campania. This is the name of the other camp. They could get married, they could play instruments. And so this book is to reveal the help of these Italians who supported these Jews, seeing them as brothers in a terrible condition. Well, of the 92 Jews who left to Auschwitz the morning of 16 October, only 16 came back. As I said, during the 9 months of the Nazi occupation, another 1,000 people was arrested with payments, with the Italians selling their brothers. As I said, my great-grandmother was sold by a fascist policeman, 23 years old. He got 400 liras for her life, which is half of a child, because my great-grandmother was on sale since she was arrested in May 44, just a month before the end of the war. She ended her life in Auschwitz. At the end of the war, my grandfather managed to arrest this fascist policeman who had been selling a lot of Jews with a gang of other policemen. He went to jail. In 1946, there was a big amnesty, and all these all these people went out from jail. And my grandfather got a call from the police and they needed to talk to him about his mother. And so he runs to the police station because he thinks they got news about his mother. You see, survivors took such a long time to come back that he thinks they got news about his mother. So he runs to the station and they say, Signor Pavoncello, do you know that man that trouble with your mother? He says, oh, the man who sold my mother? Yes, he's in jail, he's gonna be there forever. He made lots of money with our lives. Well, you better know that he's out because there was the amnesty. And that's why we called you, because he was a colleague of us, a policeman, and he's got family with small children. We need to give him a job back. Come on, the war is over. Your mother is gone anyway. Let's look at the future. We prepared this letter for you. You just have to sign it here. And through your forgiveness, we can give him a job back. Come on, let's look at the future. So this is just to tell you how Italy, all of a sudden, the Nazi fascists occupied the fascists. Something different. The guy didn't get my grandfather forgiveness, but eventually found another job. And this is how Italy faced the post-war. And that's why today there is so much ignorance. And that's today why the rise of anti-Semitism, because we didn't deal with the past. there was, in the 90s, we found in the tribunal, in the military tribunal, they found a cabinet that was within the wall. It was locked in the wall. It was painted, you know, to be hidden. And inside this, it was called the shame cabinet. Inside the shame cabinet, there were files with all the Italians who collaborated with the Shoah, for the Shoah, I mean, during the time. They were never persecuted. You know, the amnesty, the republic, let's celebrate. But this is how create a gap in the history, because then children don't know what happened. Nobody talk about it. I went to Jewish school until I was 12, and then I went to a public high school. I was the only Jewish girl for 800. Whenever they were saying, I was saying I'm Jewish, which was barely the second thing you would know about me, besides my name, they would say, and how do you speak Italian so well? And when did your family came to Italy? And my answer would always be the same. My family came to Italy before even Italy was conceived. What about yours? So people really don't know about the existence of this community. And so, you know, whenever even something happens in Israel, it's so complicated because there's no enough education on who we are, who they are, what happened in the past, and so on. Why did I put this picture in the presentation? This man is called Adriano Ossicini, and he was a student of medicine in 1943, volunteer, partisan, hunted by the fascists, who helped his boss, who is Writers Among the Nations today, Dr. Borromeo. They decided they could not do anything. They knew what was going to happen. They knew the Nazis were going to round up the ghetto, which was just in front of their hospital. Their hospital is on the Tiberin Highland, so just opposite to the ghetto, crossing a bridge. Professor Ossicini was, as I said, a young partisan, decided to send a nurse over the bridge and tell every Jew, you should come to the hospital. We're gonna hide you. We're gonna offer you a shelter. You just have to say that you are infected with a K. morbus. What is this K. morbus? It was a fake disease. They made it up. They chose the K letter because the head of the Gestapo in Rome was Mr. Kappler. So what they meant is that Jews were dying because of the Nazi disease. So dozens of Jewish families accepted their invitation. Some did not because they thought there was nothing to fear. They had just paid 50 kilos of gold.
No, let's go. It doesn't matter.
And so some of them went to the hospital and hid in a department that was called the Department of the K infected. When the Nazi came to check if there were Jews hiding in the hospital, they knew about the anti-fascist operation that were done in the hospital. Imagine the hospital had even a radio that they could listen to what was happening. And so the Nazi came, and this guy was 23 years old, didn't lose his, well, he behaved in this way with wit and with intelligence. He told the Jews that they had to cough a lot. And he told the Nazis that these people were infected with a weird disease, that they were welcome to go and check, but they would not recommend. He would not recommend because we don't know what his disease is like. We only know that they're dying as flies. It's very contagious and it's in the air. And before dying, you would have terrible pain, you will not be able to breathe, and you will get paralysis, and eventually you'll die in 3 days. So, you know, Nazis were known not to be so brave. They just ran away, and that's how this simple man, with a lot of braveness, saved dozens of Jewish families from certain death. In this picture, I had the lucky chance to meet him 3 years ago when I was contacted by an American production who wanted to shoot a movie about the K factor. And they told me if I could help them to find survivors because they wanted to tell the story of the hospital. So I was looking for survivors. I found a few, even in my family. My father-in-law's cousin was sitting in the hospital. So I'll go to talk to him. You know, it's a schmollstedel, everybody know everything. And so I got to talk to him and he says, but why don't you go to talk to the hospital, to the doctor? I said, what? The doctor? Is he alive? Yes, he's in his 90s, but he's very lucid. Okay, so I called the doctor and he invites me with the 7 filmmakers from Rhode Island to go and visit him and give him and do an interview. So besides of the amazing moment, amazing afternoon that I spent with this man, when I finally had stopped, you know, feeling what I felt, I asked him, Professor Ossicini, how did you know at 23 years old that this was the right thing to do? And he didn't even have to think about it. He just said, life gives you tasks, and then you just have to do what is the right thing to do. Simple, super simple. And this is one of the men that made possible for 80% of Italian Jews survive the war. Finally, the 25th of April, 1945, the whole peninsula has been freed. It's a shame that my great-grandmother was in Bologna in a transit camp in June, still, when Rome was freed. She was still in Italy on her way to Auschwitz. So for a question of a few days, she wasn't freed. When the Americans, Canadian, English came to free Rome, the most beautiful day in centuries. They would throw chocolates and cigarettes. And finally, the Roman Jews decided to gather down the Arch of Titus that was forbidden to them for 2,000 years, first as a rule and then as a superstition. The 30th of November, 1947, when the UN resolution gave a hope to Israel to exist, all the Jews of Rome decided to celebrate this event, going through the Arch of Titus. And you know how they went through? They went backwards to show their tuches and to show that history could be reversed. So that's how they celebrate the beginning of Israel, singing and dancing through the Arch of Titus. If you come to the Jewish ghetto area and if you visit Europe, since 1995, you find on the ground the Stompersteiner. This is a project that started in Munich by a German artist who was not even Jewish. As a matter of fact, his father was a Nazi sympathizer. And when he found out that his father was a Nazi sympathizer, he thought that he should make up by going to every single European city where Jews were taken from their homes and put a stone in front of where they used to live. So the stone recites, here used to live Enrica Sabatello, 1921, arrested 16 October 1943, deported to Auschwitz, killed October 23rd. And this is almost the same destiny of all this entire family that was completely wiped out. These are pictures that I had taken throughout these years. I really started a long time ago. All the survivors were alive. They would stop and talk to me, stop with my customers. I would just see them while entering in their homes, and I would never miss an opportunity, if they felt like, to share a little bit about their experience. So some of my lucky customers had a chance even to be blessed by the chief rabbi. You know, I have a little bit of chutzpah. And so whenever I would see the chief rabbi, I would ask him, can you bless us? Can you bless us? And I remember beautiful brachot with some of my customers down the head of this, the hands of this amazing, he's our Pope. He really was our Pope. And this is a picture of 2 days in the ghetto. Life went back to, let's say, normality. The depression comes from the fact that we are used to see you invading in a beautiful way, I say, our streets and filling our restaurants and filling our museums. So I have to tell you that Rome has been quite silent in these days, which I'm not saying it was an ugly thing. I actually really enjoyed my town in this past months, but I cannot say the same for everybody. I mean, everybody that is in tourism, it's in trouble. Another picture. Today you can see, you should know that the Jewish ghetto, it's one of the most trendy area, not to come just for visiting, but just to also to eat. Because if you want to eat the authentic Roman cuisine, you can only get it here. The Roman Jews had a monopoly of the fifth part of the beef. You know, brain, cheeks, sweetbread, intestine, liver, heart, you might say, ich, but we grew up with them. And so today, if you really want to eat authentic Roman cuisine, you come here because the only one who were cooking those pieces were the Jews. They didn't have any other options. So it's funny to see VIP and people belonging to the show business say, oh my God, the brain fried with artichokes was amazing, but it's still brain. And why do you think this artichoke is so popular? Do you know all this fuss about the artichoke, the Roman Jews refusing to go to accept the Israeli rabbinate diktat, we cannot eat the fried artichoke anymore, there might be bugs inside. Basically, artichokes were growing wild in Rome. So when you deep fry, even a shoe, it's good. So that's why the fried artichoke became such a popular dish for the Roman Jews. A summer night in the area with tables of the restaurant outside, the fresh ponentino, which is the typical wind of Rome. Most of the shops in the area still belong to Jews. This is where we go for our grocery, for Pesach. You should know that Rome, together with Paris and London today, are the only 3 cities in Europe where you can have a kosher holiday and spend a month in the same place and eat every day in a different place. Rome has got 25 kosher spots today. And you eat very good food. This is me giving a demonstration of how to peel the artichoke, because the secret is not really how you fry it. Anything fried is good, but to make it blossom like a rose, you have to peel it in a spiral. So the next meeting we do for your synagogue tiki, we'll do a cooking class so everybody can learn how to cook the artichoke. And finally, the famous kosher bakery, which doesn't even require a name. Everybody know where it is, everybody know what it's called, everybody know the nasty attitude of the Jewish ladies inside. They're all women, and when they fight, you can hear their fights from Trastevere. They have been baking the same recipes for the last 500 years, the same family, the only bakery last from the era. There used to be several more, and they bake these traditional cookies. Let me see if I have a picture of the pizza. Let's see. No, okay. That's the only picture I have. It's called the Brit pizza, or also in Giudaico-Romanesco, which is the Yiddish of Rome, pizza de Beride, where Beride means Brit, because that's the cookie that we have been baking for 500 years every time we had the Brit Milan. And so we keep doing it. We prepare it for weddings, for bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah. And when the guests leave the party, we give them a box with the variety of the cookies of the Jewish bakery, and we call it kavod. So instead of, at the end of a simcha, instead of giving those silver tchotchkes that nobody likes, we give the cookies, and that's very much appreciated. That's a picture of the fried artichoke for those of you who are not familiar with the dish. And that's another typical dish. It's the marinated zucchini. It's called concha, which does not come from the Spanish word shell, but comes from dyeing the fabrics. Because when you have to dye the leather or to work with the leather, you put it down at the sun. And before frying the zucchini, we dry them at the sun so that the water is removed. And when you fry them, they become crunchy. And then you marinate them with vinegar, garlic, oil, parsley, salt, and pepper. It's a small digression about cooking. I know it's lunchtime for you. And this is the anchovies with endive and, the pie with anchovies and endive, which, as I said, anchovies have always been a typical ingredient in the Roman Jewish cuisine, and they are baked in layer with the endive. The stracotto, it's the Roman way of saying cholent. It's got the same root, stracotto, overcooked, or cholent, that is the French, from where the word cholent comes from. Even if it's 40 degrees centigrade, my husband wants the stracotto every Friday night. So it doesn't matter if it's something that cooks for 5 hours on the small flame, he still wants it. That's, well, lamb. It's interesting that the Roman Jews are among the only ones in the Jewish world that kept the nusach, the minhag of eating lambs for Pesach. And why is that? Because when we came to Rome, the Bet HaMikdash was still functioning, and so we were doing the Korban, and so we keep eating lamb on Pesach. Well, this is some picture of my groups. This is the final classic picture at the Fountain of the Turtles. These are families who know maybe somebody is related to you. And I do a lot of tours also for seminarians, for priests and for nuns. And as you can imagine, I get very happy when I manage to give our perspective to them, since for most of the times they have no clue. And it's incredible that they have no clue of what happened since 2000 years between Jews and Christians. Well, these are also groups, and that's the First Lady of Israel. And there is a funny anecdote about her visit to Rome. She made me wait something like 3 hours because she was busy doing shopping. And I think in this couple of hours you have been spending with me, you have noticed I'm not a person that can wait. I can't wait. And so she was the First Lady, so I couldn't really don't show up. I had to wait. And when she came, I said, you know what? I'm gonna play a game with her. I said to her, have you noticed the menorah down the Arch of Titus has got that kind of base, like a pyramid? Well, you should know that historically, that base was made at the time of Titus. And how do we know that? Because the reliefs on the side describe the siege of Jerusalem. So the menorah that came from Jerusalem had a simple, how do you call it, tripiede? Didn't have that base. So the base was replaced by Titus. But the problem is that when we choose a symbol from Medinat Israel, let's say the logo of Israel has got that base. So we're actually giving kavod to Titus. Somebody can say, no, this is beautiful because we're using the menorah of Titus to show that he didn't defeat us. It's fine. But anyway, I told her, Mrs. Netanyahu, you have to make me a promise. You have to promise me that you'll tell your husband to change the logo of Israel because that's wrong. Well, she thought about it 10 seconds, and then she said, I promise. So if in the next 20 years Israel is changing its logo, you know whose fault it is. And this is Daniel Pipes, and I feel very proud to say that his assistant said I was among the only few people in the world that made him laugh. And I take it as a huge compliment. This is Naftali Bennett, and I heard that this is a good network that I made because he's giving a hard time to Bibi, so who knows, maybe, who knows? And this is his wonderful wife. This is Richard Lewis with his wife. The funny thing about Richard Lewis is that he was hanging in the ghetto in August with this long black coat and matrix glasses, like I don't want to be recognized. But the truth is that nobody knows him in Italy because we don't even get Curb Your Enthusiasm or none of his shows. And so you shouldn't have to be worried because really nobody knew who he was. So I told you about the chutzpah. I went to him, I was with a group, and my group said, go to him. Tell him if he wants to join our tour so we can meet him. So I go to him and I said, sir, I see you're lost. Don't you want to follow us? Or I'd like to show you the area. And so we became, he liked the tour. And at the end, he was using Rick Steves' book and he asked me for an autograph, which is a very nice thing that he did. This is Guy Ritchie, the real fan of Kabbalah. And this is my mentor and discoverer, Rick Steve. Oh, you should know, and I'm glad I have this picture because the other day, I was on Facebook on a group that is called Rick Steves Europe, where people just miss Italy, miss traveling, miss Europe, and so they write about their former trip and so on. So I posted this picture, another one where I know I'm certainly pregnant, and he was a little bit overweight, but you know, he likes to eat. That's what he says all the time. So we are in line at the Jewish bakery, and there is me and him, and our two bellies are really the same. And so I post this picture and I write my belly context with Rick Steve, and everybody understood it was a joke. But this guy, he wrote that I was doing body shaming, that I shouldn't have. So he was insulting me very badly. And you know, I'm Italian. It's our way of being ironic. It wasn't an offense at all. And I know him, he jokes all the time about his belly. And you know, we're in lockdown, we're exhausted, we're frustrated, we're depressed. So everybody laughed, and this guy didn't laugh. Not only after insulting me for a bit, I had to block him because he was getting really annoying. What did he do? He went on my TripAdvisor profile when without modesty, I have more than 1,000 reviews that are excellent. And he gave me one bowl, and he says that I am a not sensitive woman because I do body shaming. Now, I really don't know what is this body shaming, but I don't do any body shaming. So at the end, I'll ask you to go up to TripAdvisor, please, and say something about this session that we had together, because I want to flood him with good reviews. And I'm not gonna say what I think about him. Okay, and so this is my last image, and then I'll be open to questions. Oh, I forgot, Tiki asked me to do a connection with Tisha B'Av. You're totally right, I forgot. Well, you're right, but I think that the history of the resilience of the Roman Jews who celebrated the beginning of Israel at the Arch of Titus can really give us an example of how, when you have faith and you believe and you have nothing else to lose than your faith, you really keep going. And that's what the Roman Jews have been doing for 2,000 years. And if we're still so proud today and very active and very, you know, and it's a community that doesn't want to give up. The rate of intermarriage in Rome, it's a miracle. It's only 30%. I mean, I heard in California they reached 75. We try not to give up. We try to marry in the faith, also because it would be very complicated. The conversion issues are getting very like a nightmare. And so you can see what I do when you'll be able to come. I do a Vatican tour from a Jewish perspective, because you should know that Michelangelo grew up surrounded by Jewish scholars in the Garden of the Medici. And he left a lot of hidden messages to us, messages against the papacy, messages against the church, messages against the corruption, and actually messages of admiration for the Jews and for their story. Ancient Rome tour, it's a tour of classic Rome from a Jewish perspective, the Jewish catacombs, which happen to be a private site, close to the public, but I have access, the Synagogue of Ostia Antica, and then, of course, anything you want to do, classes and so on. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me stop sharing. Okay, what did I do? Stop sharing. Okay, here you go. Now, give me just a few seconds to read the chat so I can see if I can. Ok, grazie, molto interessante, grazie, beautiful. Conosci l'Hotel delle Muse? Sì, sì. Ah, bene. Now, the ghetto has never been in Trastevere. Trastevere is on the other side of the Tiber, and Trastevere is the opposite area. Trastevere has always been an area where Jews have been living, because they were not official Roman citizens until the imperial era. So when Rome was a republic, Jews had to live in Trastevere as the French, the English, the Germans, as the non-official Roman citizens. Okay, then contact information. My website is my website is www.jewishroma.com, and my email is jewishroma@gmail.com. Fabuloso. You see, everybody wants to talk about the artichoke. I have studied 20 years, and then everything ends with an artichoke. So next class we'll do we'll do a cooking class with pleasure. But now artichokes are not on season. And so we want to wait. We want to wait for when they get back to season without the hair inside. Grazie, meraviglioso. Sorry, I must miss the conclusion. I hope you had a chance. No, we have concluded, so you haven't missed anything. Grazie. Okay. I think I saw it all. Now, if Aaron, would you like to open the microphone, or would you like to raise your hand? I've got the gallery view, so if you want to ask questions, you see, it's not easy to find a Roman Joe. Joe, you better use me today before I get to my barbecue. I was telling Rabbi Levina that my husband to reward me for working, for being the only tour guide in Rome working at the moment. He prepared a barbecue for me. And so I have my bike parked outside here, and but I'd love to be with you till the next year. So please don't be shy. Ask question. Anything you want to know. Maybe more question will come to you when I tell you what is the system and the structure of the Jewish community today. We are 15,000 in Rome, 35,000 in all Italy, where Milano is the second Jewish community. Sorry. Then we have Florence and Venice, with really a few Jews. If it was not for Chabad, Venice would be forbidden to most of Orthodox Jews. We have a system of belonging to our 15 synagogues that is not like yours. And I would encourage you to think about importing it because it gives a lot of mobility in the community. We pay an annual fee according to our income. And guess what? Nobody pays as they should. And with this money, the Jewish community, which works like an umbrella, takes care of the synagogue, the salary of the rabbi, the rabbinical college, the welfare, the Jewish school, the youth movement, the elderly house, the mikveh, the mashgiach, anything. So basically you pay your membership and you can go to any synagogue you want. You don't own a seat in the synagogue. So that's why I go for Yom Kippur to a synagogue that is very far from my home because I want to walk and I want to do it properly. So I go to a very far synagogue from my home. Then for Shabbat, I go to the closer one. For Rosh Hashanah, I go to the Great Synagogue. And for Simchat Torah, I go to the Libyan Synagogue. I forgot to mention, and if my mother knows, she will kill me, that there are 5,000 Jews who came from Libya. And my mother is one of them. I just underlined that 1 million Jews were kicked out from Arab lands at the same time that we know every single detail about the Palestinian refugees, but nobody talks about 1 million Jews that were kicked out from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, without a penny. My mother and her family, 8 people, were kicked out from their home, family, belongings, life, all in after a month of pogroms. In one night, my grandfather bribed a man who took them to the airport and they left the country with their clothes. And they never asked for compensation. They just worked. My mother came to Rome when she was 20. She was very chatty. And she started working in a store as an assistant. Then she became the partner. Then she got rid of the owner and she became the owner, but she has not stopped working for 55 years. So don't give me the Palestinian waiting the manna from the sky because I get nervous. My mother has never stopped working and she made it. And when she retired 10 years ago, she bought a place in Tel Aviv and we were furious. What are you doing? All your saving, you buy a place and they're bombing all the time and we can go to a hotel. We don't need to have a home in Tel Aviv. I'm not gonna do Aliyah. And she says, you don't know what it means to be kicked out from your life in one night. And you have to start from scratch. And so I don't want you to ever feel what I have to do. I buy a place in Tel Aviv. So now I cannot complain anymore that she didn't want to invest in the ghetto because now our apartment in Tel Aviv in front of the Hilton, it's a very good investment itself. So I'm happy for my mother who managed to do something good with her savings. Also, you should know that when my mother met my father, none of the family was happy. Not my father's side, not my mother's side. Why? Because my grandmother from my father's side used to say that these people, they eat everything in one dish and they eat with their hands. And so that was one of the main issues when they met. But you know what I think? Thank God they married. They mixed marriage, because you know, when you get married among cousins and cousins and cousins and cousins, you get monsters. So at least my sister and I have fresh genes. And if we want a 5 hours lasting seder, we go to my mother's side. And then the second night, when I can't handle another 5 hours lasting seder, I go to my father's side, and in 15 minutes we're eating rice. So that's really the best. And you know, I can't help to end my things with food. Okay, I think I can dry my tongue. And if you have questions, go ahead. If you, Tiki, want to say something, please unmute yourself.
Hello.
That I've been watching Adina cooking all the time, but I have not understood what you have been making, Adina.
I had 40 apples, so I had to use it in my refrigerator and keep all, so I made onion applesauce.
Okay, now I know. I was curious.
Hello.
Yes, please.
I was wondering if you could talk about the migration of Jews within Rome. In other words, you know, they left the ghetto at whatever point, and some stayed there, but some migrated to other neighborhoods, and where that.
The other neighborhoods for sure, because as soon as the ghetto was open, those who had a little bit of money left immediately, as you would go out from the Lower East Side, as to remove that stain from your dress. And so those who had a little bit of money went to live in Monteverde, which is the area where I moved 5 years ago myself. And I had grown up in an area that was not Jewish, not much Jewish, maybe more in the past. And so in my neighborhood, we were just 2 Jewish families that I know. Now I live in Monteverde, and I remember, and in my building, there are 3 Jewish families, which is huge. There is a kosher butcher, a little pizza, a new pizza place kosher, a cafeteria kosher, a synagogue, and the best is the flower shop that when Rosh Hashanah is about to come, prints a huge poster with a huge rimon, a pomegranate, and writes Shana Tova. To me, that was the most beautiful welcome to a new neighborhood of Rome, because I really felt how big was the Jewish presence in my neighborhood. Even the market, the veggie market that I have at the corner of my home, you know, as I'm very chatty, I become friends immediately with people, and I like to talk with the sellers to get new recipes. You know, I cook like my grandmother, so I'm one of those old recipe cook, I mean. And so every time, I don't know, it's to Bishvat, or we have to have special species for our sedarim, I go to the market and they know it before me. And so it's beautiful to see that they sell dates, that they sell pomegranate, because they know the Jews that need this kind of things. And then other areas where we live, the Libyan Jews live in the north of Rome, in the area of Piazza Bologna, where there are 6 Libyan shuls and a few kosher facilities. The Libyan Jews brought back kosherut and halacha to Rome, because when they came, the Roman Jews were really too flexible, I would say, in terms of halacha. Other questions?
Micaela, I want to
Yes.
thank you so much. You were wonderful as always, and for brilliantly transitioning your wonderful in-person tour in Rome, which I hope that we will all be able to get there soon. But to have been able to transition this to a very informative and always entertaining Zoom program. Grazie, grazie. Thank you.
Grazie a voi.
We miss you.
Grazie, and I look forward to see you. And I allow myself, just from a walking tour, to write in the chat, because I want to fight this. We say that I do body shaming. That you please go and write Jewish Roma Walkie Tour on TripAdvisor. You just find it in this way, and you'll see what it means to mess with Micaela Pavoncello.
All right, you're as adorable and feisty as ever. Thank you so much.
Grazie a
Be well.
tutti.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe. Let me take a picture of all
be
of you.
safe.
Smile, please, because that's what I do at the end of each Zoom. I take a picture of you with your beautiful smiling face, and then I save it.
I don't have a
Smile,
camera.
please. Grazie mille.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, Rabbi Levin. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, René.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you, Micaela.
Ciao.
Grazie a
Thank you.
tutti. Ciao, Aaron.
And thank you, Aaron, so much for
Thank you.
doing the technical facilitating.
Send
Thank you,
my love
Aaron.
to Rabbi Buchler,
Bye-bye.
per favore, ok?
Yes.
Ciao, Simcha. Ciao, Simcha.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Okay.
Grazie.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
How far in advance do I have to book you?